You were never ordinary. You were never just another name, another face, another soul moving aimlessly through life. There has always been something different about you, something powerful, something rare, something they tried to bury. But no matter how deep they tried to hide the truth, no matter how many illusions they built around you, the veil is lifting. They wanted you to doubt yourself, to believe you were insignificant, to make you question why doors never opened the way they should have. But what they didn't realize is that you were never forgotten. You were being protected, hidden, not because you were unworthy, but because what is sacred is never exposed too soon. And now, the time has come. The whispers of truth are growing louder. The unseen forces are aligning, and what was lost, what was stolen, what was delayed, is no longer waiting in silence. They thought they could rewrite your fate, but destiny doesn't bargain. They thought they could erase your power, but it was never theirs to control. They thought keeping you in the shadows would keep you from rising, but even in the dark, your light never dimmed. Everything they did to block you, to delay you, to silence you, has only fueled your breakthrough. And now, the very things they tried to keep from you are being returned with force. This is no coincidence. This is your awakening. And no one, nothing, no force on this earth can stop what is already in motion. They believed they had secured their fortunes, stockpiling assets as if they were indestructible. Yet what they truly amassed was a weight that does not belong to them, an invisible burden that tightens with every passing moment. What was diverted from its rightful course did not remain stagnant. It expanded, multiplied, and outgrew the hands that tried to contain it. They mistook deception for progress, thinking they had built something lasting, but their foundation was never theirs to begin with. Now, fractures spread like unseen roots beneath their feet, and the ground they stand on begins to betray them. What they owe is no longer just a number. It has transformed into a force they cannot bargain with, a tide that will return in greater measure. Restoration never arrives in the same form as loss. It comes back amplified, as it was always meant to. The reckoning has not been delayed. It has already begun. For too long, they walked with the confidence of those who believed there would be no consequences, assuming that what was taken could be forgotten. But balance is not an option. It is an inevitability. No system of man, no trick of paperwork, no whispered justification can override a higher accounting. Those who interfered, obstructed, and withheld are now standing under an unseen audit, and the numbers refuse to be ignored. The greater the deception, the steeper the fall. At first, the shifts seem minor, easily dismissed, a miscalculation, a temporary setback. But as time moves forward, losses become patterns, prosperity turns to scarcity, and the illusion of stability fades into undeniable collapse. This weight is not merely financial. It seeps into the body, into the mind. Restless nights stretch endlessly, unease coils around every thought, and ailments arise with no explanation. They seek solutions, but nothing soothes. They search for answers, but none satisfy. What once felt secure now feels fleeting, and the effort to maintain it only hastens its unraveling. What is not meant to remain in their grasp will not bring them solace, and the cruel irony, attempts to reclaim what is slipping away, only deepen their descent. There is no escape from what has been set in motion, no negotiation that can alter the course. The return is in motion, and it is non-negotiable. What they called security was an illusion, a mirage that dissolves upon approach. No vault, no investment, no strategy can contain what is meant to be restored elsewhere. With each passing moment, The structures they relied on erode. Transactions falter, agreements unravel, and fortunes dissipate in ways they cannot control. At first, explanations are easy to grasp at. Market shifts, unpredictable circumstances, an unlucky streak. But the streak does not end. It accelerates. A sudden misstep here, an inexplicable setback there, until it is undeniable. The more they try to hold on, the faster it vanishes. And with every loss, the truth echoes louder. What was unjustly gained was never theirs to keep. The balance is not merely being restored, it is being rewritten. They reach in every direction, grasping for anything that might slow the collapse, but their efforts are in vain. What they face is not a simple miscalculation, not a streak of bad luck. It is a correction beyond their influence. The very currency they once wielded as a weapon now shackles them, turning their possessions into burdens and their ambitions into obstacles. The sense of control they once relished slips through their fingers like sand, no matter how tightly they try to hold on. What was never truly theirs cannot be preserved, and the force reclaiming it does not negotiate, does not waver. Every path they take leads them back to the same truth. Restitution is not optional, and what was unfairly claimed will not remain in their hands. The balance will be restored not by anger or retaliation, but by a force that does not answer to them. The structures they once took pride in now betray them. No amount of patchwork can keep their reality from unraveling. Walls that once symbolized permanence now crack without warning. Once reliable possessions refuse to function as they should. Investments unravel, connections dissolve, and everything they counted on proves fleeting. What was supposed to be a source of stability turns against them, as if rejecting its very ownership. Every attempt to rebuild is met with another setback, another flaw revealed, another sudden loss that cannot be explained away. The life they tried to construct is crumbling under the weight of what they took, because nothing acquired through deception can ever stand unshaken. What once gave them confidence now only fuels their dread, and the more they try to resist the collapse, the faster it accelerates. No matter how much they attempt to compensate, to mend, to force things back into order, nothing holds. It was never meant to endure. The foundation they stood upon was fractured from the beginning, and now, as they struggle to salvage the pieces, they are left with nothing but fragments slipping from their grasp. The more they fight to hold on, the more they lose. Each desperate act to regain control only amplifies the chaos. Each calculated decision leads them further into ruin. And now, they see it. What they took was not just wealth, not just opportunity, but consequence. The gains they once celebrated now carry a weight too heavy to bear. What should have propelled them forward now chains them in place, each step forward only met with an unseen resistance. They move, they push, they plead, but something unyielding stands in their way, something that cannot be reasoned with, something that will not allow them to outrun what is coming. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. They thought they could keep it buried. That time would erase the truth, that silence would be their shield. But the hidden will always be revealed, and what was covered in darkness is now stepping into the light. A harvest always comes, whether from seeds of righteousness or deception. A man can dig a well and hoard the water, but if that well was never meant for him, the earth itself will crack open and dry it out. That's what's happening now. What was taken, what was blocked, what was delayed, it's all shifting. Because what belongs to you can't be stolen forever. Their hands, once tight-fisted and clutching onto what wasn't theirs, are losing their grip. They may have believed they could alter the course, but divine law doesn't operate on their terms. No amount of schemes, no strategy, no manipulation can hold back the flow of justice. When something is marked for you, it will arrive. And not only arrive, but arrive greater than before. You don't have to push for it. Don't have to chase. Don't have to negotiate for what is already written in your name. The tables have turned, and the very things that once seemed unreachable are now drawing near effortlessly. What they thought was in their control is slipping. What they hoarded is dissipating. And what they tried to claim for themselves is becoming a burden too heavy for them to bear. It was never theirs to keep, and now the weight of that truth is pressing down. The more they hold on, the deeper they sink. It's like a man trying to hold on to sand. The tighter the grip, the faster it slips through his fingers. And all the while, you are rising. Not through force, not through struggle, but through divine alignment. This is no accident, no streak of luck. This is a correction, a restoration, a spiritual law in motion. You see, the universe does not operate on greed, and God does not bless deception. What was meant for you was never in their hands. It was always in the hands of the divine, waiting for the appointed time. And when the appointed time comes, nothing, no one, no force in this world can stand in the way. This isn't just about restitution, it's about transformation. This is your season of elevation. This is your moment of divine compensation. What they fought to keep from you is about to be returned, multiplied, increased beyond what you ever imagined. They see it happening, they feel it slipping, and yet they can do nothing to stop it. They thought they were the gatekeepers, but they were never in control. The real authority has always been higher. And now, as they struggle to hold on to what was never theirs, you are stepping into the very blessings they tried to deny you. The inheritance is shifting, the wealth is realigning, and the doors they tried to lock are opening without effort. This is not revenge, this is divine justice. And when justice moves, nothing can resist its power. They wove justifications around their actions, convincing themselves that withholding from you was a necessity, a safeguard, a matter of responsibility. They framed exclusion as wisdom, painted their control as protection. But beneath their reasoning lay something far simpler: greed. They feared what they could not dominate, sought to tighten their hold, mistaking power for security. They told themselves that by ensuring you remained beneath them, they were preserving their own advantage. Yet rather than fortifying their position, they dismantled it. The reserves they hoarded dwindle. The stability they clung to falters. What they sought to lock away now escapes them, not in the form of a single loss, but in the steady erosion of everything they sought to keep. Wealth obtained through deception carries a weight that cannot be ignored. It does not shelter, it does not sustain. Instead, it drains, consuming everything it was meant to preserve. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. The barriers they constructed were never walls of protection. They were cages. They sealed themselves within, convinced they were securing their fortune, yet now find themselves encircled by consequences they did not anticipate. Every attempt to maintain control only tightens the binds around them. What once seemed untouchable is now slipping. Resources shrinking, conflicts surfacing, complications arising without warning. The stability they assumed permanent now teeters on the edge, unraveling faster than they can contain. Meanwhile, what was taken is shifting back into place, returning not in fragments, but in full. And now, the irony. Had they chosen fairness, had they allowed what was meant to flow freely, they might have remained steady. But they fought against the inevitable, and in doing so, set their own downfall into motion. What they clutched so tightly was never meant to sustain them. Every gain made through manipulation now demands its cost, and every moment they delayed only increased the price they must now pay. The weight of consequence is no longer distant. It is pressing in. The ground beneath them weakens. The certainty they once carried has eroded. The cracks are widening, and still they resist. Still, they attempt to retain what has already begun to slip away. Yet the longer they refuse to accept what is unfolding, the more relentless the correction becomes. What once could have been a measured reckoning now intensifies into something far greater. There is no pause, no escape, no negotiation, only the inevitable return of what was stolen, amplified beyond recognition. And now, standing at the edge of their own undoing, they finally see what was always true. They did not just deprive another, they sabotaged themselves. The toll required of them now exceeds anything they ever took, and there is no way to halt what is coming. They clung so desperately to what was never meant for them, grasping, scheming, refusing every chance to restore what they unjustly claimed. But now, the more they resist, the swifter their downfall. They assumed holding on to what was never theirs would solidify their status, that obstructing what was meant for another would ensure their dominance. Yet, in their greed, they unknowingly triggered a force far beyond their control. The very thing they sought to keep hidden is now the catalyst for their undoing. And as their foundations collapse, a new reality emerges, one where they sink, and the rightful inheritance finds its way home. What once seemed unattainable is now flowing without restriction, not by chance, not by luck, but by an unseen order that no deception can withstand. And here lies the ultimate irony. Those who aligned with integrity are now witnessing abundance, while those who chose deception find themselves consumed by scarcity. Even those who stood by in silence, supporting the rightful claim, are stepping into newfound prosperity, proving that truth always aligns with abundance. Meanwhile, those who operated in deceit are watching their carefully woven illusions unravel. Their plans disintegrate, their grip on stability weakens. Every measure taken to maintain their false advantage has turned against them, each attempt to reclaim control only accelerating their descent. It is as if the very laws of existence are making a statement. What was wrongfully taken cannot be preserved, and what was destined cannot be obstructed. They mistook their actions for strategy, their manipulation for wisdom, believing they could outmaneuver fate. But fate does not bargain, and the higher the climb built on deception, the harder the inevitable fall. The ascent of those once overlooked was written long before they interfered, and now, just as certain, is their own descent. They ignored the signs, dismissed the warnings, convinced themselves they were untouchable. But no stolen gain is permanent, and now, as everything unravels, they are left to face the full weight of what they set in motion. The consequences were never avoidable, only delayed. They convinced themselves that betrayal was merely an act, a decision without repercussions. Yet history has shown, time and time again, those who seek to control what was never theirs always pay a price. The partnerships they once depended on are disintegrating. Opportunities they once took for granted now slip through their fingers. The same hands that once extended support are now withdrawn, leaving them isolated within the very walls they built. And it is not punishment nor vengeance. It is the natural consequence of severing ties with what was meant to sustain them. They believed they could take without loss, that their deception would never turn against them. But now, the weight of their choices presses down, relentless and inescapable. They see it clearly, how the structures they once relied upon are fracturing, how the very people they placed their trust in have turned away. The same way they dismantled the foundation of another's security, their own is now being stripped away. And now, as they search for an escape, a remedy, a way to undo what has already been set in motion, they come to realize the truth. What was lost cannot be reclaimed. What was taken will never bring peace, and the cost of betrayal can never be evaded. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6:7. A farmer can scatter stolen seeds across his land, but if the ground rejects them, no harvest will come. He can water them, tend to them, speak over them, but no matter what he does, they will not take root, because stolen soil does not yield a blessed harvest. That's the truth they never understood. They believed they had secured their future by taking what wasn't theirs. They thought they had built a fortress with walls too high to climb, but what they didn't realize is that those walls were never strong. They were sandcastles, built on deception. And now the tide is coming in. They schemed, they plotted, they twisted the truth, all in an effort to keep what did not belong to them. They convinced themselves that holding on to your portion would ensure their security, that blocking your blessings would keep them ahead. But what is divinely assigned cannot be stolen, not forever. And the longer they tried to force it, the more they sealed their own fate. Because what was denied was never just money, never just material things. It was a calling, an assignment, something bigger than their greed could ever comprehend. They used contracts and fine print, backroom deals and whispered lies, thinking that paperwork could override divine order. They tried to cement their false claim, thinking they could alter destiny with deception. But prosperity does not bloom in cursed ground. The wealth they hoarded has turned into a burden. The possessions they clung to have become shackles. Instead of rest, they feel unease. Instead of abundance, they feel depletion. Instead of a lasting legacy, they are watching what they built begin to erode, piece by piece. Because here's the thing, you can try to build an empire on stolen ground, but the foundation will always be unstable. And when the cracks start forming, no amount of patchwork can hold it together. At first, it seems minor. Little losses here, unexpected issues there. But then, it picks up speed. Investments crumbling, relationships fracturing, favor disappearing. They don't know why everything they touch is falling apart. But deep down, they can feel it. They can sense the weight of what they've done pressing down on them, getting heavier with each passing day. And while they struggle, while they panic, while they desperately try to hold everything together, something else is happening. A shift, a transfer, a reversal of what they thought was permanent. Because the blessings they tried to hoard were never meant for them. They were always meant for you. What they fought to keep is now being pulled away. What they tried to lock up is being unlocked. The doors they slammed shut are swinging open, but not for them. They made their choice, and now they must face the cost. Because no one, not a single person, can prosper from what was never rightfully theirs. No matter how high they climbed, no matter how much they took, no matter how long they thought they had won. God is balancing the books. And when that happens, there is no escape. They assumed they could alter the course of fate, bend the inevitable to fit their desires. But what was never theirs was never meant to remain in their hands. They are left with a choice: to surrender willingly or to watch as it is stripped away piece by piece. They may not notice it all at once, but one by one, their grip is failing. The wealth they clung to is slipping through unseen cracks because no one can retain what was marked for another. And when they finally recognize that resistance is futile, it will be too late to reclaim what has already begun its journey back. At first, there were bystanders, the ones who turned away, who chose silence, who saw what was happening but refused to intervene. They convinced themselves it wasn't their battle, that remaining neutral would shield them from the consequences. But the weight of truth does not allow escape. Now even they can see it, how the pieces are falling apart, how the unraveling is no longer coincidence, but the natural order correcting itself. And suddenly, neutrality is no longer an option. Those who once defended the unjust now distance themselves. Those who once ignored the truth now find themselves watching closely. They are not just spectators, they are part of the shift. The illusion they once believed in is dissolving, and with it, their allegiance to those who built their fortune on deception. Some walk away out of fear, unwilling to sink alongside a collapsing empire. Others step back out of guilt, realizing they played a role, however small, in perpetuating the lie. And then there are those who turn toward what they once overlooked, seeing now where the truth has always been. They are moving away from the storm that is swallowing the guilty, aligning themselves with the inevitable, because no one wants to be bound to something that is already crumbling. The tides have shifted, and now the truth is undeniable. Even those who once turned a blind eye can no longer ignore the unfolding reality. The illusions have shattered, and lines are being drawn between what was hidden and what is now in plain sight. They spent years blocking, manipulating, and accumulating what was never meant for them. But they never realized that their every action was only fueling what they sought to prevent. There was never a need to beg, to struggle, or to plead. What was withheld was never in their power to claim. Every deceptive move they made, every opportunity they obstructed, every attempt to redirect what was destined has only strengthened the force behind its return. What was taken is not just being restored, it is expanding. What was delayed has only multiplied. They will be forced to witness a reality they never anticipated, their loss mirroring your elevation, their downfall unraveling while your influence flourishes. And the irony, even those who chose truth from the start are now experiencing the overflow, as if standing in alignment alone was enough to bring blessings in abundance. Meanwhile, those who thrived on deception are watching their carefully woven plans collapse. The wealth they once held as leverage now slips from their grasp. The stability they built on dishonesty now crumbles beneath their feet. They assumed they were securing their place at the top, but in reality, they were setting themselves up for the fall. There is no way to defy what was always meant to be. No amount of manipulation, no scheme, no deception can override an unshakable law. They believed they could steal, contain, and control something far beyond their reach, but what was never theirs will never remain with them. Every step they took to preserve their power only ensured its loss. What they once dismissed as impossible is now unfolding before them, and their desperate attempts to maintain control have only sealed their fate. The shift is no longer approaching. It is here, irreversible, undeniable. This is not merely about material wealth. This is a reordering, a complete restructuring of what was once out of balance. What was misdirected is realigning, not by force, not by demand, but by something far greater than them. There was never a moment of true loss, only a pause, only a gathering of momentum for what was destined to return. Their greed blinded them to the truth. Every move they made against you only propelled you further. Every betrayal, every delay, every attempt to hold you back only made the restoration more profound. And now, the weight of their own choices is pulling them under. Their downfall is not your concern. It is a consequence of their own making. What is returning was never meant to be fought for, never meant to be chased. It was always moving toward you.